So for 1 year in college, I lived in a fraternity house, and I think I'm 7 years aged from that experience. It's a pretty terrible experience, and I want to start off by saying that my fraternity wasn't a party fraternity. It was full of people like me. Like people who don't know how to make friends, and they all congregate in this one place and say, yeah, we're insert fraternity name here. Like everyone's personality is centered around something that's like not strong enough to be its own thing. Like you can only love Dungeons and Dragons so much. You know, it's like I like cheese doodles as well, but it's like this one guy only called me. This is gonna sound a little racist, but this one guy only called me Anyang because he loved Arrested Development. And that was his whole personality, so I was like, alright, we'll leave it be, dude. Cool. So, I joined this fraternity, and everyone has neck beards, except me, obviously, because I'm wearing cargo pants. And I lived outside of the fraternity house for 2 years, and I'm just, my personality is, I'm one of those guys who's all about the fraternity. And then I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna live in the house. And then after 1 year, I actually didn't even step foot in the house ever again or talk to anyone in that fraternity again. Because I turned 21, I didn't have to. I was just like, why am I hanging out with these people who don't bring me joy? Anyway, so the house itself, it's full of people who don't know how to take care of themselves. There's so much frozen food. There's so much frozen food from like a decade ago. It's truly unbelievable. And like the standards of living, it's kind of like, I look back, I do this thing where I will watch the Firefest documentary if I'm ever feeling stressed, because I'm always like, well, it could be worse. If I'm ever feeling shitty about my living situation now, I'm like, well, it could be worse. I could be living in a fraternity house. Anyway, so I lived in a room meant for one person, but 3 people lived in there. That was fun. But it was fine. I had a curtain to separate myself from the other bed bugs. Anyway, so yeah, one time I stepped on a screw in the shower. That was fun. I didn't know that I had to be worried about tetanus and syphilis at the same time. But the big story I want to say about living in this fraternity house was there was this one guy who lived out of state, and one winter break, he had a bunch of weed. I know we just heard a weed story. This isn't going to be as animated. Just so everyone knows. But he had a bunch of weed, and he was just like, well, I don't want to fly out of state with this. I'm just going to make a ton of weed oil and not label it and leave it in the communal kitchen. So he did that. And apparently he like told people, but he didn't tell me. And I went down there, and I was just like, ooh, I'm going to treat myself. I want to make a steak before I go to this birthday party I have to go to. And I'm going to use this free oil in the kitchen. It's going to be awesome. And that's a steak. I'm going to use salt and pepper. Hell yeah. So it was, all right, so it gets very weird. So I made the steak, and then I go to meet my friends downtown at a karaoke bar. And I don't know if you've ever felt an edible hit for the first time, let alone your first edible experience. Imagine you didn't know that you had an edible and you started feeling that way. So what happened was we were in this like little booth, this room in this karaoke spot, and I remember like things started to slow down. Which I thought was, at first I thought it was cool. I thought I was getting superpowers. So I was like, oh, this is sick. I can control time. But then after a while, I was just like, oh no, because I'm also a massive hypochondriac. Like I'm one of those guys. Like last year I thought I was losing some hair, and I heard that like, oh yeah, your mom's dad, if he went bald, then you will also go bald. So I asked my mom like, oh did Grandpa go bald? And she was like, we don't know. He died of a stroke before he could lose his hair. And I was like, well, I wish I didn't know that. And every time I've had a headache now, I'm just like, I like walk around, I'm like, all right, Am I slurring my words? Anyway, so I remember I was in this karaoke bar, and Feel Good Inc. was playing around me, and it was my turn to sing, and I just stood there. And it was a cold room, but I was sweating so much, and I just stood in one spot for the entire song. And everyone was just like, okay, we'll sing it instead, Alex. And they just like kind of danced around me. And after it was done, I was like, I gotta go home. And I went home and I took a nap. And then I woke up fine. And it didn't occur to me until a friend came back and he was just like, who's been using my weed oil? And I was like, you fucking dick. Anyway, so that's the story. Yeah.